What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Daily Dahlia. I'm Dahlia, and today we're going to talk about money. So I sort of wanted to start this series about budgeting and managing your money and how to make use of your money, in the best way that you possibly can and in the way that you want to use it. But let me preface this video by saying that I am not an expert. I'm not a financial planner. I am not an accountant. I'm not any of those things. So, I'm not certified to tell you what you want to do or what you should do with your money, but I will tell you what works for me and how maybe you can apply what works for me in your life and see if it helps you. Now, obviously, all of these are suggestions. I'm not telling you this is the way it should be done. I'm not telling you that this is the way that it will work for you. I'm just saying it works for me, and maybe it'll work for you. If you guys hear a lot of weird background noises, that's because my cat and my dog are both sitting here watching me. I don't know why. It's really weird. But the jingle jangling you hear is my little kitty cat walking around. Anyway, so today, in this video, I would like to talk about how to start a budget. Now, I know a lot of people have trouble managing their money, or they're not, having much money left over at the end of the month, and they are, having trouble making savings or paying off debts, things like that. So a budget, in my opinion, is a really helpful way to try and figure out how to maintain your money. So with that in mind, I'm going to tell you 8 steps on how you can get started on a budget and how you are going to be able to manage your money. Okay, so let's start with step 1. Know why you want a budget. What is your purpose of managing your money? Do you just want to know how much you're spending on things? Or do you want to know, do you want to save more money? Do you want to pay off some debts? Or do you just want to have a little bit more control over how you're spending your money? Those are the things that you kind of want to think about when you're building a budget. Because really depending on what your goal is, your budget style will change. So think about what you want to do. Do you want to save money? Do you want to buy more furniture for your house? Or do you want to pay off your debts? Or do you just want to see where all of your money is going at the end of the month? And if that's the case, and that last one, then I don't necessarily recommend that a budget is the best way to do that. It is a great way for you to control where your money goes. But if you just want to see where your money goes, then you probably just want to use some tracking apps or some envelope apps or something like that. You don't necessarily have to do a budget in that case, but you're more than welcome to if you want to. Step 2, choose a budget style that works for you and for your goal. So there are a lot of different budget styles, and each one is suited to a different personality and to a different goal. So, for example, I am a really detail-oriented person. I like to control every aspect of my finances. So my budget is an every penny has a name budget, which means that every dollar in our account is being applied to something, if that makes sense. So whether it's been assigned to a savings, or whether it's been assigned to paying off debt, or if it's there for paying rent or for groceries or for something, every single penny has a purpose. So that's my style. And I know that's not going to work for everybody. I know not everybody is that meticulous and that detail oriented. And I know not everybody wants to go to that length in managing their finances. And I understand that. And that's perfectly fine. So the most important thing is for you to pick a system that's going to work for you and that's going to be something that you can stick to. If recording your expenses every single day and keeping your receipts and writing down all of your spending is not going to work for you, then don't do it. Find something that works for you. So my suggestion is to go on Google, type in different budgeting styles or different budgeting methods, and read a bunch of articles and find a system that interests you, that you think you can manage, and then go from there. Step 3, get an estimate of your expenses. Now, this isn't an entirely necessary step, but I think it will really help you build up your budget in the way that you want it to be. Depending on your budget style, like if you're just doing the 50, 30, 20 style, which is just like 50% is for expenses, 30% is for wants, and then 20% is for savings, then that's perfectly fine. You probably don't need to know how much you're spending on everything. But in my opinion, I think it helps to get an idea of how much you're spending on everything in order to like have a base point from which to start. Because if your goal is to pay off your debts or to save more money or to curb your spending, then you're going to want to know where you're spending everything, where you're spending your money on everything. So my suggestion is, first, keep a record of all your bills, which is the easiest part because you get a bill, whether digital or paper, right? So hold on to those bills for a whole month, or for the length of a pay period. But I suggest a month because it's sort of a good like base timeline to work with. So get your bills, hold on to those for a month so that you can keep track of what your bills are. Now, of course, your bills are going to change every month, but you kind of get a general idea of how much you're spending on water, how much you're spending on electricity, how much you're spending on gas. Obviously your phone bill, your internet bill, your cable bill, all that stuff, that's all going to be pretty much stable unless you have like, data limits and things like that. But for the most part, what you want to do is just keep all those totals and have them on hand for when you go to make your budget. Now, on top of that, you also want to track how much you're spending on groceries, how much you're spending on gas, any other thing that you kind of routinely spend money on that's a necessity, that's not a want. So, I don't know, like medications, or if you have to go to the doctor regularly, your co-pays, pet food, if you have to get a haircut regularly, that sort of thing. So all that stuff, write it down, keep the receipts, track it. You can use a tracking app like an envelope app, or just use cash for everything. Just do some way to track all that money so you have like a base number that you can work off of. Like, okay, I spent this much on groceries last pay period. I spent this much on gas and all this stuff. So you know how much money you can allot when you go to make that budget. And so that leads us to step number 4, gather all the data. So when you're making a budget, you need all of those numbers, right? You need how much you're spending on your bills. You need how much you're earning. You need how much you got to pay off your debts. So you need to collect all those numbers and put them in a spreadsheet, right? Or just write them down somewhere, whatever works for you, right? So depends on the style of the budget that you're doing. If you're doing the every penny gets a name budget, then you need to know how much money you have in your bank accounts, right? And how much cash you have and how much, credit you have on your credit card and all that stuff. If not, then you'll probably just need your total income for that pay period. So it depends on what your method is. You just have to sort of figure out how you want to break down your budget. Like, do you want to know what's in your bank account and like how all that money is getting put aside for something? Or do you want to just have like a general idea of how you want to spend your paycheck? Does that make sense? So depending on which way you want to go, make sure you have all the information you need. So at the very least, you will need your income or your bank account totals. And then after that, you'll need your expenses, and you'll need whatever debts you have to pay off if you have debts, whatever cash you have in your wallet if you're doing the every penny gets a name system. Anything that you could spend right now, you want to have those totals included. I mean, it's up to you. If you have like a rainy day jar, like a future vacation jar, and you're not even touching it, it's full of pennies, you don't want to count them, that's fine. Just leave that. It's up to you. Pick a system that works for you, like I said. And if it's too complicated, then make it simple. All right, so once you have all the information you need to start your budget, it's time to move on to step 5, which is make your budget. So like I said, as with all the other steps, how you make your budget really depends on what type of budget you're doing. But essentially what you're gonna start with is either your income or your cash totals, right? Everything you have in spendable cash right now in all accounts and on hand. And then from either one of those, you're gonna subtract your expenses. So that means your necessary bills, what you have to pay right now. And then you're going to use those estimates that you got from step 3 about what your necessary expenses are, and you're going to deduct those. Then what's left after that is what you can spend on debts to pay off debts, what you can spend on wants and fun, and what you can put into savings, right? So obviously you're going to want to do number 1 first. You're going to want to get rid of those debts as soon as possible. If you've seen Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University DVDs, or if you've read his books or anything, then he has a pretty good system of debt snowballing, which means you pay off the smallest debts first and then move on to the bigger ones. So my suggestion is that if you have really small debts compared to your income, then pay those off right away. Like if you have $100 on a credit card and you have plenty of money left over after expenses to pay that off, then pay it off completely. Then once you've done that, you can work on the bigger ones, pay off little by little. Obviously, you're not going to pay off your $40,000 student loan debt in one pay period, or even a year, or even sooner than that, because it's all a big scam. But little by little, try adding more money to it as you go on and see how that goes for you. So once you've taken care of debts, the next step is to take care of your wants. So what do you want to buy this pay period? Do you want to go out to eat? That's like fun money. That's what I call fun money. So allot some money to that. Do you want to go to the movies? Do you want to, buy clothes? Do you want to buy video games? Do you want to buy hobby items? Do you want to buy makeup? Things like that you don't need, but you want? That stuff goes after debts, right? So obviously once you pay off, or not pay off, but like once you put your money towards some debts and you have that little bit of money left over, you want to put some of that into savings, right? So think about how much money is left over, and think about how much of that you want to spend and how much you want to save, and then go from there. And then if you really want to be crazy about it, you can divide it up into specific sections. Like I said, you could do entertainment, and you could do eating out, you could do hobbies, you could do video games, things like that. Or you could just leave it as one big open blank space where you could do whatever you want with it, and once it's gone, it's gone. It's up to you. Like I said, you want this budget to work for you, so make it something that works for you. Make it something easy for you to follow, something that you're willing to try and continue with. That's the key. Step 6 is try your budget. Now, this is kind of the fun part, I guess. It's not really that fun, but this is where you get to spend the money, so that's exciting, right? So when you first start out with a budget, it's inevitably not going to work completely well. Maybe the system you chose doesn't work for you, or maybe it's too complicated, or maybe you didn't give yourself enough money for groceries or whatever. And that's perfectly fine. That's the whole point of trying the budget. However, the important thing about trying your budget is that you really should track your spending, at least for the first try, even if it's not your style, because you won't know if this budget works for you unless you keep track of how that money is being spent, if that makes sense. If it's being spent aligned with your budget, or if it's being overspent or underspent, you're going to want to know, because you're going to want to be able to modify the budget to make it work for you, right? So at least for that first pay period, maybe 2, maybe 3 if you like it. You can continue doing it forever, but at least for the first one, track your spending, see how that goes for you. Now, there are different methods that you can use for tracking your spending. I use a digital cash envelope system called Good Budget that lets you create categories and allocate money to each category. And then you can go in on the app and say, okay, I spent this much in groceries. And then it takes it out of the envelope and lets you know how much you have left. So that really works for me. But if you want to use straight cash for that first pay period, that works too. If you just want to do old-fashioned pen and paper, write it down or collect all your receipts, totally up to you. Just try and track those expenses and keep track of how your money is being spent and whether it's aligning with your budget. So at the end of that, you might find that you overspent, you underspent, you gave too much money to something, you didn't give enough money to something else. You could probably cut your spending somewhere. Like, as you're tracking your money, you'll find that you're a little bit more conscious of how you're spending your money, and you might find that you're spending less money. So you might realize that, okay, well, maybe I'm spending too much money on, say, video games, or maybe I'm spending too much money on eating out. Maybe I can cut back a little bit on that. So as you're also tracking your expenses to see how it aligns with your budget, you're also noticing where you're spending that money and whether it's too much money or too little money, and where things can be adjusted in your budget. So that leads us to step number 7, modify your budget. Obviously, the first time is not going to go perfectly. You're going to forget to record things. You're going to go over budget. You're going to forget to think about your spending, or maybe you'll forget to pay a bill or something, and it's fine. Don't even worry about it. That's the whole point of this process, is to find something that works for you. I keep saying that, but that is the point. So even if it doesn't work, fix it up so that it does. If you need to adjust the numbers, adjust the numbers. If you need to change the budget style, change the budget style. It's perfectly fine. So what I want you to really think about as you're making your budget and as you're trying your budget and as you're testing it out is, does this work for me? And do I like this? And finally, can I keep this up? Those are the important points about keeping a budget, because the whole point is to reach that goal that you thought of in the beginning: saving money, paying off debts, curbing your spending, things like that. So if you're not making those goals, fix it until you can. It's that simple. So flexibility is key, and just remember that it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. Nothing's perfect. Your finances aren't perfect. And then it will be okay. You'll make it, I promise. So that leads us to step 8, which is basically repeat steps 6 and 7, because you're going to have to adjust and go along, especially, once you find a groove, you may not need to adjust that much, but when your life changes, you move, or you get a new job, or you get married, or you have kids, or you adopt a dog, or whatever happens in your life, your situations are going to change. You're going to have different expenses, you're going to have different priorities. So that's why flexibility is key. And continue keeping track of how you're spending your money. You don't necessarily have to do that, but it really helps in knowing how much you're spending and how your budget should be laid out. So those are my 8 steps to starting your own budget. I hope you found this video helpful. I hope it was clear. I probably did repeat myself many times, but if you have any questions, I am perfectly happy to answer them in the comments or even make a follow-up video. I will also do another video of my personal budgeting style, which it's a bit complex, but it works for me and it might work for you too. Who knows? But anyway, so I hope this helped you. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments and I'll try to answer them. And I thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.